in that moment, I was a warrior woman. I was standing in the power that was given to me to stand for not just me, but for women and for my team. And that meant I had to make a hard decision that could have cost me, in a sense, my life, because my livelihood was on the table. But I had to make that decision. And those kinds of things are things that I think people don't realize as leaders, as business owners, as professionals, as women. We have to do that over and over and over again. And that was a defining moment for me that helped me be the woman I am today.
Welcome to Women and Work, the show where we take an inside look at how women are overcoming our own unique challenges as we grow our careers or build a business while nurturing relationships and family. I'm Diane Mocha, founder and CEO of MomSub, the childcare app that connects you to a substitute mom. And I want you to know that work can fit your life. Our guests show you the way they've done it. Today, I'm with Dr. Sakira Jackson, a business psychologist and serial entrepreneur who coaches CEOs and other executives looking to scale, improve efficiency, and build impact. Thanks for joining our podcast, Sakira.
Thank you for having me.
I understand you've been running your company, Intentional Business Growth, for 16 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And before that, you started in sales.
Oh, I've been in sales, I've been in production, I've been in packaging, I've been a serial entrepreneur. That's my life.
So what do you think has been the biggest challenge for you as a woman, whether you were in corporate or you ventured off to start your own company?
I think my biggest challenge has always been I have so many ideas and wanting to figure out which one I should focus on while running my family and all the other many things that I like to do, because I'm multifaceted. And so my biggest challenge is determining what to work on at any given moment.
And feeling pulled, perhaps?
Yeah.
You know, you have the women who say, when I'm at the office, I'm looking at the pictures on my desk of the kids at home and feeling like I should be there. And then I'm with the kids and I'm like seeing the text messages from my boss, wondering like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have left that meeting early. And so did you go through that feeling of being pulled, and how did you deal with that?
You know, it's funny. The first story that came to mind when you said that was back when I was in sales. And I had been running this sales department for about 6 years. And so I had a team, but my manager, the vice president of the company, he always would schedule a meeting at 4:15. At the end of the day, when women, we're the ones that got to go pick up the kids and do all these things. And this one particular day, he said, we're going to schedule a meeting. And I said, I can't do that because they charge me for being late at the daycare center. And he said, well, you know, you have to choose. And I was just like, who says I got to choose between my children and the job? And he actually said it out of his mouth. And I remember standing there for like what seemed like 5 minutes, right? Before I just finally said, well, I guess I'm choosing my kids, and turned around and walked away. And the funny thing is, all my team got up and walked with me.
Oh, right. Now, was your team women or men?
Mixed, but all of them got up. I had 6 people, 2 men, 4 women. They all got up and left. And that was the end of him doing 4:15 meetings. He never said that's why he didn't do it anymore, but we all knew, right? So that was really when I just said, you know what? I'm not going to go through this. And I just chose my kids and my life, and it made it a lot easier for me to make decisions by, in that moment, making that decision. And it's changed how I do things too.
Wow, what a defining moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be almost backed into a corner
Yeah.
because you could have said sooner, like, 4:15, why are you doing this to us? This is very hard for parents. But you didn't, right?
I did not.
You know, you didn't speak up. Sometimes women don't feel it's our place. We don't want to act like we're any different than the guys, even though we are. And we have these obligations. And we're often the default parent, not always. And we have more mental overload and everything like that. And so you got pushed to this point where you were forced to make a decision, and you made the decision that made sense to you. And you probably didn't even in that moment feel like you were being courageous. courageous. When you look back on it, as you were driving there, were you worried? Were you crying? Were like, did
I
I just
remember
lose my job?
thinking when I got in the car, what's going to happen when I come in the morning? But I also was so worried about getting to my kids because I've always lived in the south suburbs, worked in the city, so I always had a drive to get home. And so there was these two warring thoughts of I've got to hurry to get home, and I'm also like, what are they going to do? Will I come in and will I have a job? And that is not fair to have my job be on question because I'm a mother. I just felt this pull, but I was so proud of my team. So proud. Like they all were calling me like, we're with you kind of thing. And I just felt so like that was a defining moment for me and my team.
And your team. You really were a role model in that moment. And you let them step into something that maybe all of them felt.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you stood up as the leader. And that's part of what being a leader is, right?
It is. And it's not always easy. I have a book out that I just finished called The Power of the Dress. And it's
The power of the
dress.
dress.
And it's specifically for helping women stand in their feminine power and understanding which archetype they have to be in that moment. Because in that moment, I was a warrior woman. I was standing in the power that was given to me to stand for not just me, but for women and for my team. And that meant I had to make a hard decision that could have cost me, in a sense, my life because my livelihood was on the table. But I had to make that decision. And those kinds of things are things that I think people don't realize as leaders, as business owners, as professionals, as women, we have to do that over and over and over again. And that was a defining moment for me that helped me be the woman I am today.
Wow. And you say you stepped into this role as a warrior woman. And that's interesting you say that because when I decided to create a YouTube channel and share stories about working women, I called it Working Mom Warrior. Because at that time, this was 10 years ago, I was feeling like I was going into battle every day. My kids are grown now.
Absolutely.
It definitely gets easier when the kids are grown. You miss them, but then you have all these other things that fill your life. But during that time, even though they were teenagers, it can be sometimes the busiest time. It may not be the most challenging, but, what did you feel that made you comment in a way that you are a warrior? And did you feel that you had to keep going to battle and holding up, your shield? Or at some point, did you say, I don't have to fight anymore. Let's figure out a way that I can just sail through life? Or
Well,
are you still a warrior?
I think honestly, and I'm talking about the book, but only because I've identified there are archetypes that we have to stand in depending on what room we're in. Because there are different rooms and we have to be a different archetype at that time. So am I still a warrior woman depending on where I am? If I'm in a decision room and I have to fight, yeah. And do I still have to fight? Absolutely. I mean, my children were very small and they're in their 40s now. So at that time, that was what I had to do in that room and make a decision and stand up for myself and for my team. But I've had to be, the nurturer. I've had to be different types of people depending on what room I'm sitting in. And as a woman, I think, I don't know that it's different so much for men in that I think we tend to kind of downplay what they have to do as fathers, but because of the way our society is designed, we carry a large burden. And so when we're in one room, we're standing there and we're nurturing the people in the room to where they need to go. And then we might have to fight a fight to get what we need done. I've fought for $1 million contracts that people were trying to take from me. Literally,
You got to fight to keep those.
yes.
You
But
don't want to just let someone else take over
but
for
they
that.
will come in and they will say, well, I've been a part of it for 5 years. And that has happened. And it's like, but I'm the one that went out and made the call. I'm the one that followed it through for 4 years. I'm the one that stood up. This is not your deal. So I am saying that as women, we have had this fight that comes at us, and it comes because the skill sets that we have to use look different. And because we have to use a different kind of conversation to get what we need done.
Because the expectations on us are different.
Absolutely.
Oh, I don't expect her to rise to that level or fight back over
fight back.
this.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And when you say the burdens, it may not even be society or our own families that put those burdens on us. It may be we put those burdens on ourselves. We're the default parent because I have to be there at the doctor appointments. I have to be there for pickup. I don't want you to handle it. I want to handle it, because, whatever the reason, I want to be the perfect mom, or I just want to have those experiences after school of giving them snack and doing homework. But the thing that rattled me a little is when you said your kids are in their 40s.
Absolutely.
So this happened many years ago when you
Absolutely.
were faced with this choice. But it's still going on today. I see women on LinkedIn complaining about this yesterday, today, all the time, that bosses, whether they're male or female, whether it's a small company or a large corporation, are doing this. And sometimes it may be unintentional, and other times it may be intentional, and a lot of times it's just apathetic. I don't care. And so what can we do to make those bosses, society, and all of these workplaces care?
I don't necessarily believe that we can make them care.
Okay.
I think that we can learn to build better skills because you can't change other people. And given that you can't change them, you have to change yourself, or you have to determine what additional skill sets, what tool sets, and what mindsets you need to determine which room you're in and which skill you need. So that I just spoke at the Black Women's Expo on the 7 assets. And one particular woman in the room asked me this question about how could she speak up without apologizing. She says, I lead teams, but when I'm in rooms with team leaders, I feel like I have to say I'm sorry first.
Women do that way too much.
And I thought, why are you apologizing when you're already a leader?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I feel like I'm apologizing because I have to stand up to them. And so she's apologizing for standing up.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, they've already made you a leader because they've already seen the skill. So first you have to own that you have and deserve to be in the room. And that's about changing your mindset, right? That's not even getting new skills. That's not trying to change anyone in the room. That's showing up in the room as your full self. And when you start doing that, you start thinking about what additional skills, what additional tools can I bring so that when I'm standing in the room, everybody in the room sees me. I say that the power of the dress disarms and resets the room. But if you don't know to be powerful when you come in the room, you're already apologizing for being in the room.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about those skills and tools, and you mentioned 7 assets. So we want to know, what are the 7 assets?
It's interesting because people think of assets and you automatically think of assets and liabilities, right? But if you think of them from a characteristic of the person as 7 assets, you have your intelligence. That's your first asset. Build that. Start with that, Go out and find out what you don't know.
Keep learning.
Right. Don't be the person that's like, I've already made it to this level, and what else do I need to know, right? Then your assets is your wardrobe. Your wardrobe is what tells people what to think about you. And we don't really think about it anymore, but there was a time when the way a woman dressed determined who and what she got in her life. And we are so far removed from that, but we don't realize that we can determine how people see us by how we dress. So think of your wardrobe as a power tool. I can put on the right kind of dress and I can have people gravitate towards me. Have you ever been in a room with a woman and she walks in and everybody in the room stops? And a lot of times it's because she's exposed. But a lot more times it's because she's so classically, beautifully dressed that everybody's just like, who is she? Don't you want to be the person like, who is she? And why should I know her? So your wardrobe is important. Your skill set is important. When I say skill set, I think of it as like the way that you're able to get results, the reputation that you build, right? So if you're thinking about it and you get results all the time, you get a reputation. But then it also gives you resources of people that you can bring to you because you get results. So when you're thinking about it, what are you thinking of? Do I have a reputation for standing up and showing up and doing what I say or not? That's an asset if I build that, but it can be a liability if I don't, right? What resources do I have? So many of us have resources we don't even know we can call on. People that we've connected with who really like us, who would love to help us, but we're afraid to ask. So we don't ask. And so we miss that asset that's sitting out there. That is a resource that I could call someone. I recently called a gentleman, and it was so weird. I called him because someone asked me to call and see if I knew anyone who could be a part of a real estate transaction. And I said, well, I'll just call David and see. And he was like, what you doing? How much do you need? And it wasn't for me even. But in that moment, I realized that I had a resource for financial funding that I hadn't even tapped into. But I was immediately willing to aid someone else. And that part is really critical. As a woman, when you look at your resources, you look at your results, and you look at your reputation as those three assets, it helps you to identify where am I able to build my character and my what do I call it? Your balance sheet, if you will, of assets that are going to add value to the people that you know and to your balance sheet or your income because they're available for you.
And yourself too. Don't just
Right.
tap into them for others.
So because we're so
It was
quick to
easier for you to call him for someone else than it might have been for you to call him for
absolutely.
yourself.
That's what I mean. So knowing that kind of thing. So those are your top five. Then your bottom five. Bottom five are the ones that we, how do I say this? We tend not to want to call them as assets because society has kind of um, downplayed it. One of them is feminine intuition.
Well, that's very important. And
And
nowadays,
it's a
with meditation and everyone talking about being able to connect to another realm, that's exactly what that
it is an
is.
asset because if you are willing to tap into who you are as a woman, there are things that you can discern that hopefully no insult to any men, but there's something that God gave us that is not in everyone else. That's just the way it is. And the last one is your spirituality. You need to have a faith. Your faith is your asset. It is what can hold you when everything else falls apart. When you don't have a faith, it's easy to get swayed and pushed and moved. But when you have something that grounds you, when you understand who God is and who you are as his child and what your identity really is, it gives you grounding no matter what else is going on.
And what do you tell people who don't have traditional spiritual beliefs?
I ask them to just sit still and ask yourself, where did I come from? You might not have a traditional belief. You might not believe in God. You might not believe in Jesus. But the reality is that there is a seed. And even science has proven that the God spark is a reality. Science has proven it. So even if you are a person who doesn't believe in traditional religion, you're not a Buddhist, you're not any one of the traditional religions, you have to ask the question, where did I come from? There is a source, period. There is a source. And if you can get yourself to the source, then ground yourself to the source. I believe in God, but I know that there are people who are walking that don't. And that's your choice. If that's what you want, God gave us free will. But I am saying you need a source. And so even if you don't have anything else, go to the source.
So you're dropping a lot of gems on us today. I want to hear a little more about your journey. So you were in sales, you were doing very well, obviously, but you made this decision to go off on your own. And did family have any influence on that? Why did that come about and how difficult was it?
Well, I'm going to say, first of all, family did because my dad was the first African American to own a spin wash in the state of Illinois. So that was my first
A
job.
spin wash.
Spin wash. He washed
What's that?
tractor trailers. You know, the back of the trucks that have to be cleaned.
Okay.
My dad owned a franchise, and that was what he did. He'd go in, and they would go to wherever they were all parked, and they'd clean the inside of the tractor trailers.
Okay.
So that was my very first job. I kept his books when I was 12, from then until I left when I was 17 to go to college. So that was ingrained in me that business was what you do. But it wasn't until, quite honestly, I got fired that I started my business.
And when was that? Tell us what happened.
The same people who were the same boss who was giving me such a hard time. Um, I had a contract that I worked on for 4 years, and it was with the federal government. It was a $10 million contract, and when I came, the company had not set up salespeople to really earn an income, and so I negotiated with them that I would move from the 1% to the 10% of whatever I brought in. So this contract bringing in 10% is $1 million. Anybody is in, you can calculate that. And I had written my commission into the contract so the company would not have a problem paying me. Well, when the contract was signed, which was on my birthday, I brought the contract in. I'm so super excited. I've worked 4 years. I got this contract signed. It was going to employ 103 disabled individuals. So I'm like on, 10,000, right? And he looks at me and he goes, I think we're going to need to renegotiate your contract. And I thought, he can't be serious. And he says, we'll talk about it on Monday. So I immediately go in my office, close the door, say a prayer, ask God what to do. And I kid you not, guys, I heard copy everything.
Oh, wow.
And I just went and I copied all my files and took them home.
And you had brought this deal to the company. The company wouldn't have the $10 million without you. And you had negotiated in the deal an extra million for your commission. So they wouldn't, so
There wasn't
it
going to
wasn't
cost
coming
them
out of
anything.
their pocket.
It wasn't going to cost them anything. And
Threatened. He was threatened.
he says, so I left that day. And so over the next 4 months, he just was really treating me horribly. But me being the woman of Christ, I asked God, how do I set myself up? Because I can see where this is going. So I started talking to my clients about the work that they had been saying they wanted to add to that we couldn't do. And one particular gentleman that I went out to, I sat down and I talked to him and I said, I think I'm going to need to leave this company. Would you guys come with me? And he said, absolutely, let me know. So that was like maybe 2 weeks before the firing. So I came in this one day and he says, and I knew it was something wrong because he comes and he takes his finger and he's like, I'm like, okay. And I come in the office and he goes, you know how I told you I wasn't pleased with the way your contract was going? We're going to have to let you go. And he brings these 2 security guards in and they walk me to my office and they take my personal things and put them in a box and they walk me out the door. And I get in my car and I call my client and I said, can we sign that contract? And he said, absolutely. Can you come today? I left there, went over, he signed the contract. The coolest part was they gave me a $70,000 piece of equipment. They moved it from their facility to my new offices, bought a crane, built the crane, took the crane and moved the equipment to the 3rd floor where my building was. And from there, I just started doing private label manufacturing. And I got fired and started business the same day.
And so you never had time to grieve, to worry. You didn't go through any of those emotions. You just went from high, low, high again.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of confidence. And all those years of building up the skills that you knew you had and the connections.
It's funny, I never really thought about what it took. I was so busy flat out running to get it, started, staff, contract, all of the things that there was no space in there for me to go, what have I just done?
Mhm.
I just didn't even really think about it. I was so busy saying, wow, this just happened, right? And from there, I've just done so many different things. And my life has been filled with, as you say, high, low, high, low, high, low. I mean, I've had companies, that one did really good until it didn't, but it didn't stop me. I started another one and I started, uh, I had a retail store. I sold African art across the country. And then I decided I was doing management consulting for a company called International Profit Associates. And they were flying me across the country. And I actually wanted to quit because while the money was good, it sounded very petty. My plants kept dying while I was out of town.
Those were your new babies.
And I just
You could
felt
get someone to come in and house sit.
I just felt like I needed to be at home.
All right. Well, you listen to that intuition
I
again,
did. I
right?
did.
You can't get what you want if you don't know what you want. So you have to recognize it's not what society says that you should want. It's what you
It's
really
what you
want
want.
inside, and we're all different. No one knows what's going on inside except you. And so you recognize that and you move towards it and you continue doing that and you're guiding others to do that as well. And it helps them
Absolutely.
grow and thrive. And wow, what great insights you've shared with us today. Thank you for that.
It's been fun just talking about it because you live your life, at least I think, you live your life and it's your life. And it's hard to see how other people see the things you're doing. And for me, to your point, what I've learned and the reason why I became a business psychologist is because I realized that I wanted to help business owners live a life that they didn't need a vacation from, because that's the life I have now. And I know for sure that the systems, the structures, the strategies, and the soul of their business is the reason why they don't have that life. And so helping them figure those things out is what gives me purpose.
Wow, hugely needed. And I have great purpose in sharing those kinds of stories so we can inspire others like you. And we thank you for watching today's episode of Women in Work. So if you enjoyed today's story, we want you to remember to share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe to meet our next amazing guest. If you want to invest in a solution to the childcare crisis, check out MomSub's equity crowdfunding campaign at momsub.com/invest or connect with MomSub on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. That's MomSub, like a substitute mom. Remember, your career, your choices, and your success are yours to define. Keep pushing boundaries and spreading your love and encouragement to other women who need it.